Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of Vida Baseball Live. I'm Julie Alexandria, and here is a look at what is trending. Well, the Padres are now the proud owners of the best record in baseball. After the Brewers ended a 9-game win streak to start the week, the Friars tacked on a win last night, bringing their lead to 31-18 record. It could be Fernando Tatis Jr., who has 13 home runs on the season and just finds a way to win in every game he plays in, or it could be the SD swag chain. Check this out, which goes to a player of the game who made its debut in the dugout over the weekend. You gotta love it. Gaudy, yes, but pretty awesome for the wins. There have been 6 no-hitters this season so far, so who's going to be the next pitcher to throw one, do you think? If you asked me, that would be Bartolo Colon, who just made a dazzling debut in the Mexican League, proving that he has something left in the tank and hopes to garner the attention of major league clubs for a possible major league return. One can only hope. Please, we love you, Big Sexy. Now, saying goodbye to a close teammate is never fun, as Willy Adames gets traded from the Rays to the Brewers earlier in the week and hugs Randy Arozarena in the dugout. This photo just gives me all the feels, and one can only speculate that this move will eventually make way for baseball's #1 top prospect to finally make his long-awaited debut. Wander Franco, who signed baseball card, just went for a whopping $200,000 over the weekend. And if you think that's a lot of coin to drop on a piece of cardboard, how about this? $3.7 million for this Honus Wagner card, which sold at auction, making it the 5th most expensive card of all time. Now, yesterday, New Era debuted the new local markets hats, and after being utterly destroyed, I'm talking eviscerated in the Twitterverse, they pulled all of the hats after only a few hours. But I mean, come on, seriously, these are just egregious monstrosities. It just had to be seen to be believed. So check it out on Twitter if you haven't seen them already. Thanks so much for watching. That's a look at what's trending. And now it is my pleasure to welcome to the show Jen, Mercedes, and Ozzie Guillen Jr. in New Jersey and Chicago, respectively. You guys, did you have a chance to check out these hats? Because, oh man, that's all I can say.
Conspiracy theory. They made them this bad on purpose because they only made a certain amount of them. They pulled them out, and now these hats are going to be like collector's items. Because there's no way that you literally make them that you have to go out of your way to make them that bad. It just got every single time somebody tweeted from a city. Obviously, for example, I didn't know the area code situation in LA. The 2 maple leaves that Julie, you tweeted. There's a couple of them that you don't know unless you're from that area. The disaster of the hat situation. So again, too many coincidences. I did not even see one hat that was like, okay, that one's kind of cool. It was a bad day for New Era.
I was okay with like the Houston one because it had I understood like the Rocket, right? I got that. But there were so many like egregious. How do you have the same hat for the Yankees and the Mets? I don't get, like, I mean, no creativity whatsoever. Well, obviously they had a 3rd grader do all of them because that's what it looked like. Like, it looked like a 3rd grade project, and it was like, you know, put the symbols on. What do you think these symbols represent, or whatever? And that's what it was. It was so bad. I mean, people were tweeting from like St. Louis. How do you not have the St. Louis area code for the St. Louis team? Like, I mean, really, New Era? And I think, Ozzie, I agree. I was actually thinking about that. I was like, well, these are going to be like collector's items at some point. They're going to be worth like a lot of money. But in the meantime, get a designer from every area, and then you will have designs that are more specific. I mean, New York, all you needed to do was add the 7 line and the 6 train. Like, I mean, totally different, right? And you could that represents both of the teams, both of the boroughs. But no, you have those Statue of Liberty on the front of each one. God.
Talk about phoning it in. The one that got me was that people from the ATL were saying, I don't even know why there's a spaceship on this hat.
So somebody said that there's an AT alien team or something like that. I didn't really look into it, but I saw a lot of people responding. So, but yeah, there's also a lot of like
on the same line of phoning it in, the 2 same of the hats for New York. Every team in California, of which there are 5, all had palm trees on the sides of that. First of all, palm trees are a Southern California thing. There was palm trees and tacos on the Oakland A's hat. A palm tree in Oakland, please. It was all bad. It was all bad. The whole thing. I'm wondering though, you guys, is there a secondary market for these? Are we going to find them, sold on some other site, or are they going to wind up like photos from a third world country of little kids wearing these?
Both. I think we're going to see both.
I think they become collector's item. Again, we want to find what's so different, and they're so uniquely bad that it makes them that interesting. So I don't know. Again, with brands, you don't know what they're trying to catch your eye with. And it's something that is surprising because baseball has done such a good job jumping in that world of doing something the NBA and the NFL has done so well, of collaborating with artists. I just bought a Frank Thomas card from a young artist, that I bought it from Topps just because I thought it was so cool. So baseball has been in the evolution of doing really cool things. And then New Era comes and drops this. So I was very surprised.
Yeah. The biggest
we were rooting for you, New Era. In the Tyler Banks voice.
Listen, I'm going to pour one out for whoever is running their social media account, because I suggest a whole lot of therapy. All right, let's talk about the best thing that we saw last night, a full slate of games. What caught your attention, Ozzie?
The best thing that I saw last night, actually we'll talk about a little bit later, is that we saw a really bad fight in minor league baseball in South Bend, Indiana. And it was a brawl that usually minor league baseball fights actually get really bad, worse than big league fights. And equipment was thrown, and it is actually probably one of the best things that I've seen, because it goes back to the unwritten rules and players basically not being, I guess they didn't read the memo in the minor league. So I thought that was the best thing because it definitely got out of hand.
Wait, what caused it? What was the cause of the fight?
What causes everything? And again, we're going to go into the rant. There's a lot of unwritten rules. When you're coming off when you're coming off the pitcher's mound, okay, and you got somebody out, you don't say anything to the guy. You got him out, walk away. You don't say anything good. You don't say anything bad. That's an unwritten rule, okay? Mm-hmm. That's just something that happens there. There was just a lot of chirping back and forth between the teams. There was just a lot of talking, and then one of them got out of hand. There was in the second time that it happened, the catcher from the South Bend team, which is the Cubs, shoved the hitter, and then it got really out of hand. Then equipment was thrown. But again, the code of conduct, okay, are there for a reason on baseball players. And that's what I'm going to go into an explanation, because we have this thought that the unwritten rule is just the bat flip, okay? And it's just for like not having fun. And the unwritten rule is a very extensive way of how players conduct themselves.
But Ozzie, and we'll get into it later again, but I want to make clear, unwritten rules and like what you're talking about as far as code of ethics, those are just codes of ethics for people in general. It's just like how to behave towards people respectfully, especially if you're in a competition. Like if you're coworkers, you just have a certain way that you're supposed to behave, and that's one thing. And then the other set of unwritten rules that we'll talk about, that you'll talk about too, that are just pretty much dumb. Like that's the ones that I think people are up in arms about, right? And as far as swinging 3-0 and all of those other things, but there's a code of ethics that we should all abide by, whether we're baseball players or not.
Agreed. Be kind to each other. Jen, what was your favorite thing that you saw?
Favorite thing that I saw, so I was at the ballpark. I was at Yankee Stadium yesterday, and there was a lot of actually really great things that I saw. I hung out with some of the bleacher creatures, which was a lot of fun. Great group of guys over there. But I also witnessed Mr. Vlad Jr.'s 16th home run. And it was just really great to be there and see the reaction from fans, because I think Vladdy is a player who is just loved by a lot of fans in general, baseball fans, and people weren't sure whether to clap or like boo or like what do you do. Like there was some applause that I could hear, and there was people who were around me who were like, oh, Vladdy hit another home run, and then yay, but no, because it's against the Yankees, it's our team. So that was kind of the reaction that I was seeing from a lot of people. But yeah, it was cool. It was cool to be there.
That's awesome. That must have felt good to be back in it with a quasi sort of full stadium, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, and less restrictions too, like as far as like the social distancing and all that. I mean, you got to trust people, and it was good. Yeah, it was nice. The environment was nice.
Nice. Well, for me, I don't know if this is the best. We'll file this under the worst and rather random and weird. Injuries. Cleveland pitcher Zach Plesac apparently had a bad outing and came back into the locker room and decided to rip his shirt off. And he did it so aggressively that he has a thumb injury now. He injured his right thumb ripping off his shirt, Terry Francona said. So now he is on the IL. I mean, you can file that under so weird, so random. And there are a few of these. Every now and then you'll get one of these weird injury reports where guys, there was one that was injured flying a drone or operating a drone, tripping down the stairs. I mean, Ozzie, in your experience, what's been the most random, weird injury that you've heard of?
Well, my favorite one is the bull bore one. Cespedes. That's my hands down my favorite one of all time. Cespedes attacked by a live animal. That one again, it's something that can be prevented. There's injuries that people get mad. My least favorite one is when Aaron Boone went down playing pickup basketball. Okay, because Aaron should have known better. Comes from a baseball family, and he wasn't doing an activity that he should have been doing. But again, it happens. You know what? With this situation right here, the Quintana last year, people making fun of him because he was cleaning a fish and he cut his finger. Okay, that's something that happens. People don't understand your hands as a pitcher. Okay, especially your throwing hand, it's extremely sensitive. Okay, there's guys that miss games because of blisters. Okay, so if you have anything that's wrong with your hands, pitchers' hands are very sensitive. So I can see this happening. It could have been an old injury. Okay, that you had your thumb extended, and then you were doing something aggressively, and it goes back a little bit more. So that's one of. There's a couple of there that are my favorite ones, but hands down, the Cespedes is more for sure because it also altered his career.
Yeah, that's right. Isn't that interesting? That was almost, if you want to recall it, that was almost the tipping point. Yeah. I feel like that was the catalyst. Everything after that just sort of had a negative tone. Right. That's interesting. I do remember that. For me, it's got to be Madison Bumgarner with the BMX bike.
Correct.
For me, it was Java Chamberlain and the trampoline.
Oh, good one, Jen.
I remember that one. On a trampoline. Yes.
That's another one that altered his career, right? I mean, we pretty much never heard from Java again.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about I Spied with my weekly eye. What was the best thing, Jen, that you saw all week?
So there's obviously, baseball and entertainment. There's so many good things that we all see, but we all love a really nice, good, feel-good story. And Albert Pujols continues to be a fan favorite. Why? Because he loves the fans. And there was a game that there was a fan kind of sitting right next to the dugout, and he fist pumped the fan, the kid, and then he goes in, grabs a bat and slides it over to the kid. The kid's in shock. And I just thought it was such a sweet moment. And that's the thing those are the things that Albert does. And those are the reasons why fans just love and adore him, because he appreciates them, and especially the kids. He's really good with the kids. And it was a nice story to see.
He's always so good with the kids, taking off his jersey and handing it to. You always see those videos and those photos. He's incredible. Ozzie, what was the best thing you saw this past week?
I love that moment that Jennifer's talking about. It could have been an Angels fan, another point for the Dodgers. But my favorite thing that I saw actually came from a negative. I loved Miss Yamamoto on Twitter, okay, a wife of the pitcher, calling out Mets fans because Mets fans were ones that critiqued Trevor Bauer so much for not coming there, and they were the best fans in the world, and then they felt like they were used and played the victim for a while. And now you have this pitcher who actually everyone loved when he came on, and he's had a couple bad outings, and they've turned against him. They've literally become extremely toxic on Twitter, Mets fans. They've done the same with Lindor. I hope that he doesn't even have Twitter at this point. Guys that are signed for a long time in fan bases, I don't know if it's because of social media, because there was no baseball last year. We're so caught up on this day-to-day of just jumping on individuals. And the way that she approached it she wasn't like calling people out and she was like being aggressive towards them. She was just letting them know like, hey, like we're still good people. Like we're still here to try to win and try to do something. And I feel like when your wife's involved, that changes your feelings as a player, okay? Because usually your wife sides with like the fans. It's okay. People are just being rude. But when like you have wife and player now on the same team and being like, this place is horrible. We hate being here. That's when everything starts bothering you. The lady who does your nails, the 7-Eleven is too far away. The Target is not close enough. And that's when things go south real quick. So I know players probably shouldn't be on Twitter, but like they get on because they want to connect with the fans. So I understand you critiquing the player and talking about he didn't do too good, dropping stats, but attacking him personally and her, very low point to Mets fans, but they're not the only ones. That's
I was once with a player who was getting a lot of crap from fans, and I was like, why are you even like reading that stuff? It's like, oh, I don't care. I'm just, it makes me laugh. And I'm like, dude, no, it doesn't. Like, you could see it in his face. And he was just going through them. He's like, look what this guy say. And I'm just like, dude, like that is so bad for your psyche and whatever, they're human.
And I like it. And it's hard because there's guys, I'll give you an example right now. Michael Stroman, me and him have gone back and forth on Twitter, but he's someone that's very out there for Mets fans, okay? And he's having a hell of a start to a year, okay? And Mets fans are obsessed with him. Michael Stroman might hit a 2-3 game kind of like little drop in his performance. Are Mets fans going to start attacking him after he's given you so much of his personal life and you love them so much for being there? You just can't turn, this is, if Yamamoto was having this issue for, 3, 4, 5 years, if he was Bobby Bonilla and he was still taking money from the Mets, I understand your grief, okay? But this guy's been here less than 3 months, and they're doing the same with McCann. They're doing the same with Lindor, and their team's actually not even playing that bad. So from a fan base, I think you have to like take a breather. And when you're going to critique the player, critique his performance, but don't go really after him because sometimes the fans are the ones that keep the players engaged. They might be the ones that they need you to be cheering you on, so that you're getting backed up. It's like being in a boxing fight and your corner man starts booing you. You're like, oh my God, like my corner man's booing me. I might as well give up. So fan bases, they need to know they play that role on players. And I'll be honest, there's players that they don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about their fan base. They don't care about. They're just cold-blooded, and that works for them. And then there's guys that are extremely sensitive. They need that fan base. They need to feel that love when they go out there. So again, fans know. And I love the way that she was approached it. She came from a very, very human, very touched, saying, hey, we're human beings. Like, you guys are saying really nasty things. We don't deserve this. And it was something that I think family members deal with on a personal level. And that wife and husband or player and partner, that's such an important aspect in baseball that I think is way more important than any analytics or anything. That, that's the person you go with at night and have those deep conversations about your career, like most people, and if you're happy or not. So it was a big moment for her to come and say that.
Absolutely. Well, personally, the best thing that I saw all week, I love when this woman is in the press and making headlines because it's usually for something incredible. In my opinion, she is America's best athlete. Yep, I said it. I think she is. Simone Biles, gymnast, successfully completed a Yurchenko double pike. This is a move that's commonly done only by men in competition. She is the first woman to land it in history and the first woman to perform it in competition. And when reporters asked her after the competition, why did you attempt it? She says, because I can. On the back of her leotard is the outline of a goat. If I could bottle this woman's confidence, I would, because she is just firing on all cylinders. I absolutely love watching her perform, and it's good to see her back in competition. So Simone Biles, congratulations. She is the best thing I saw.
I want to say something about Simone. I had the chance to meet her at the All-Star game a couple of years back. And something that stood out to me was not only her level of confidence, right, but also her knowing her boundaries. And I think that's important when you're in the industry, in any industry where your fame is always, people always want a piece of you. So we were at the All-Star game party, and it was her time off, basically. I had asked her for a photo, and she's like, oh, I'm not taking pictures right now. And which I totally understood, right? Because you have to have time to just be yourself and just be there, right? Like as a person and not as Simone Biles, this big thing, right? And so I want to also, congratulate her on that, because as a woman in the industry, right, you need to know your boundaries, and being so young to know that, I think I applaud her for having that type of an attitude. And you're right, Julie. I mean, if I can bottle up that type of an attitude, oh my God. And that needs to be a t-shirt, because I can.
Literally. And it's interesting, the point you bring up. It's so important, I think, for anyone who has a public facing persona, whether they be professional athletes or entertainers or anyone on camera who is constantly, consistently giving every ounce of energy. It is so important to the longevity of your career and your mental health and personal well-being to be able to conserve your energy and to be able to understand when you are giving too much. And oftentimes that can be mistaken for having an attitude or for being too big to want, I think. And I love that you were able to then process her not wanting to take a picture as she's conserving her energy and setting boundaries and doing what's right. Whereas many people would have said, oh,
yeah, and you know why too? It's because if she took a picture with me, then she was gonna have to start taking pictures with everybody there, and she was not gonna have the time to enjoy herself. So yeah, I understand, and she was really nice and gracious about it, and she kind of talked to me for a couple of minutes, and that was it. Like, people do need to understand people's boundaries and privacy, and understand that, like you said, your energy is so important. And when you're giving so much of it, you're like, your mental energy and your mental state, it's hard, man. This industry, it's hard. Like you said, when you're a public facing persona and people just want so much of you, it's easy to see why people then retreat. And you're like, where did so-and-so go, right? Like, I haven't seen that person in a long time, because they need some space. And so, yeah, Simone Biles is an incredible person, incredible role model. And I think a lot of other people should follow her in her footsteps.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the week. Who won the week? Jen, in your opinion, who wins?
So even though, they had a rough game yesterday, I do think that the Yankees have won the week because of the way that they have turned the team around. I mean, we started off this season being like, what is up with the Yankees? What is going on? The Bronx, I said they needed to go to a strip club. Maybe they heard me, and they had some fun, and they're having some fun again. You can tell the team energy, the vibe is different. Obviously winning helps, but you could just tell that the team is much more loose, and they're only one game back in the standings. The way that they've been playing, it says a lot. And I think, a lot of people were really, really scared at the beginning of the season, but the Yankees are the Yankees, and they're proving a lot of people wrong. So I tip my hat to the New York Yankees.
I wonder which one, was it Scorers? Was it Hustler? Was it the Penthouse Club? I mean, it could be anywhere on 10th Avenue, right, Jen?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to you, Ozzie. Who won the week?
Cowboy Joe West becomes the number one all-time umpire to umpire a game. He hits a feat that he's been working really hard to do, and did not eject anyone. Okay, actually had a pretty good game behind the plate. I wanted him to throw out a couple managers, call a few balks, but Cowboy Joe West is the all-time umpire to cover a game. So, it was an amazing feat. And the White Sox gave him a huge, in the middle of the game, they had a moment for him, which is really cool, because Joe West has been someone that, is always at the negative side, has probably had an issue with pretty much every great manager ever, probably thrown out every single one of them as well. But he became the guy. That's a lot of games, started back in 1976. So that's impressive. So, salute to him. He's been able to do a lot. So congrats, Joe.
He did get booed though, right?
Of course. And again, people were shocked. What's the biggest shocking thing? Joe had a great run with Ozzie. There's a couple funny ones. The most famous one being Joe and Angel on the same staff on a 2-balk call on Mark Burley versus the Indians, ejecting the starting pitcher in the third inning. It's one of the best ones ever. John Boy has a great video on it. But Joe West, he's such a part of the game that guys that have been around the game, people were surprised when Ozzie said congrats to Joe. And every manager was out there saying congrats. When you're an umpire, you're an essential part of the game. And even though that you're arguing and you're competing and your emotions get there, very rarely do you hold a grudge. They're a part of the game. It's like a media member covering you. Like you're part of the game of baseball. You're part of Major League Baseball. And in the age where we talk about robot umpires and we're making fun of Angel and, we're calling umpires out, they're a huge part. They're part of they're like their own team. And even if you argue, you still have that respect. And come on, the guy's 5,000 games of MLB, you're going to mess up. But that's just amazing that you've given your whole life to the game of baseball. And I think fans were a little shocked that, someone like Ozzie, who they deemed that they were enemies, was congratulating Joe. And if Ozzie was ever managing again and Joe was an umpire and Joe messed up and Ozzie had to go there and say something to him, he would. But that's just a dynamic in the game that I think that we kind of stay away from. And that happens between friends and competitors. Very often your best friends on the other team and you want to get a hit, they want to strike you out. But at the end of the game, you kind of you become friends again. It's just, that's how the game works.
Absolutely. Two big names in the game. Congratulations to Joe West. To me, who won the week? I'm always a big fan of baseball trivia. So this guy's name, I guarantee you, is going to be on trivia questions and bar trivia and maybe even Jeopardy in the future, because Venezuelan player José Godoy becomes the 20,000th player to be called up to the major leagues. So baseball's only 150 years old. So it's crazy to think that there really have only been 20,000 players who have played at that level. It's a very exclusive club. So his name, if you can imagine, who, is I guess it's, how do they do it? It's answer in the form of a question. I don't know. I don't watch Jeopardy, but I'm sure that they would say who was the 20,000th player to be called up to the major leagues. There you go. From Venezuela, José Godoy. All right, let's talk about our trending topics and something that has made an impact on all of us. We've all seen it happen when a beloved player in the clubhouse gets traded away. Sometimes it happens mid-game, sometimes it can happen on the plane, and sometimes it can happen in and around the All-Star break. So let's talk about that moment and what it means for the clubhouse dynamics, what it means for the other players. When you have a guy who is just beloved by everybody and all of a sudden they get the call, it happens pretty fast, right, Jen?
Yeah, and we were seeing Willy Adames get traded, and a lot of his teammates were really, sad and but sad to see him go. But it was also nice to see the reaction from his teammates. Chris Archer had a really nice post saying how happy he was to be his teammate again, and that Milwaukee was going to be, so happy and blessed to receive a player like Willy Adames. And when we see players like that, they're just so beloved. To go somewhere, I think, I feel for the players, the teammates, and we saw Albert Pujols, the impact that it had on Mike Trout and all of those things. And I think when it kind of catches people by surprise, it's sad, but it is a business and it is the way that things go. And Julie, I know that you've seen players, on a plane, even coaches and managers get released in such ways, and it does a little something to the psyche, but it's a business.
It is. It is absolutely a business. And a lot of times you have to put those emotions aside. I remember when Kurt Suzuki was traded on the plane, we were about to take off and he got the call and literally had to get up out of his seat, grab his carry-on luggage. We were delayed because they had to get his luggage out of the belly of the plane because they had already sent his big checked bags. And he got in a car and that was it. I remember when Matt Kemp was on the Padres and got traded, literally got the call. He was in the dugout. It was in the middle of the game. And he was sitting on a golf cart and they took him around and he got his stuff from the clubhouse and he was gone and traded away to the Atlanta Braves. It happened so quickly. Ozzie, I know you have stories about this too. What does it do to the clubhouse as far as the clubhouse dynamic, and how long does it take them to bounce back, or is it kind of just understood that this is what happens? And as Jen said, it's a business.
The Willy Adames one was very shocking because you usually know you're going to get traded if your team's really, really bad and you're the best player on the team and they're going to make a move. So you're kind of thinking about it, rumors. If the Twins don't start winning, Nelson Cruz will probably read about him being traded to every team in the Major League Baseball. So you kind of get your feel. Carlos Beltran did it for 6 years in a row. So you kind of know what's happening. But for Willy, they were like on an 11-game winning streak. He's been playing great. Like, we all knew that the prospect was in the minor leagues, that he might be coming up. But we always thought that he might come up and maybe take the 26th spot and not the starting position right off the bat. So that's where I think that Willy was shocked, because they've been winning and they've been working. So I think that for that, I think that's why he was shocked. That's why he was crying. And from a teammate standpoint, there's nothing sadder than seeing a guy that you really love and to leave. When it's a guy you don't care for, you're like, oh, great, get this guy out of here. And it's going to take some time. And again, a lot of pressure from the kid to not only produce from a playing standpoint, but also you want to be able to keep that connection with the players and be able to feel that void of when you get traded. And when you get traded, you don't know. The funniest one that I was ever a part of with my family, most people don't know this, Ozzie Jr, manager, was technically traded to the Miami Marlins in 2012. He didn't leave. He was traded with 2 games left, and the Marlins wanted their traded manager to be in the city the next day. So Ozzie, like in the 8th inning, we got the call that he had just been traded, and I was in the booth, and I was like, okay, I guess he's managing for the last 2 innings, and it was an awkward situation, but basically grabbed the stuff from his office that he could, and we were off to Miami, and everything else was picked up later. And it happens. But again, it's one of those moments that I felt bad for Willy because I don't think he expected it. Also, they're like, where did they trade me? At least the Brewers are a good team, but you're going to Milwaukee. Got to talk to, family members. We got to go from Tampa over here. There's a lot of things that have to happen in trades, not just going to the other team and putting on the uniform. A lot of things happen that affect you as a human being. So
the best non-trade has to be, though, Wilmer Flores.
Oh, of course. Wilmer crying Flores. He was crying. He was so emotional that the other team called and said, we don't want him.
Yeah.
The other team said, we don't want him. He's too emotional. You guys keep him.
Oh, no. I mean, I think it was, he was going through the emotions. He was still very young at the time. And he was just thinking, he had been there his entire career, and you're in the game. And it was the way that he had found out about it. And then it didn't happen. And then he goes on to become like a cult classic, right? I mean, everybody loves Wilmer in Queens.
Listen, I cried too when I left New York. Jen, let's talk about being a must follow. Who's your must follows on social media? Let's give out some tips and some tricks. Jen, who you followed on social media?
So one of my must follows, if you don't want to be musty, but you don't like the chemical odors and the chemicals going into your body, Humes deodorant, owned by my co-host over here, Miss Julie Alexandria. Definitely follow them, try out the product. And I'm not just saying this because Julie is here with us, but I've tried the product. It's really, really great product. If you are all about organic stuff and trying not to have chemicals in your body as a deodorant, Humes is definitely the way to go. Follow the account.
I love you. Thank you for that. Oh,
I not want to see this, but this
I heard Vlad Jr. has been using Humes. That's
hey, that's why he's been hitting bombs.
That's why he's been hitting bombs.
Ozzie, who you following? Who you liking?
You know what? I didn't want to talk about the drama, but he just can't stop. He quit a boxing fight. He just gets more interesting as it goes. Jose Canseco, just follow him. Just his follow. I literally think that he's either in love with A-Rod. Every single thing is. I feel he's just out there. You just have to follow him. To hate him or love him, whatever. You don't know what's coming. You really don't. Okay, with Jose, every day is a different day. And obviously Alex is his number one. Usually his number one focus out there. But you got to follow him. This guy was one of the greatest baseball players of all time in his era. A gorgeous man at the moment, a guy who was a celebrity before celebrities were around. And now he has a Twitter social media cult following. Like, you don't know where he's coming from. He's talking from like Bigfoot to like who Jennifer Lopez is dating. He's asking her out, giving her dating advice. I'm like, Jose, you've been divorced like 3 times, I think, at this point. Like, he's giving advice on dating.
He wants a sugar mama. He wants a sugar mama.
I think he does. I think
daddy, so he wants a sugar mama.
You know what? And he looks really good. Like, go to a bar, sit there, and go to Palms. I don't know where Palm Springs. Go. I don't know, Boca, Raton, Florida. Where do older people live these days? But I just think he's just a really good follow because other baseball players who are older, they usually have like a niche. They talk about like hitting. They talk about like something specific. With Jose, you don't know where it's going. Sometimes it's like really good baseball knowledge, and sometimes it's just Jose being Jose.
You know, the last tweet I saw from him, I did see when he was trolling A-Rod about the makeup stick. But before that, I think he is trying to get into the crypto game because he wants to create his own Jose coin. He's been basically crowdsourcing, looking for developers who will be able to create his own crypto coin that he wants to get on blockchain. So I think if he comes out with that, it will be incredible. I know somebody.
I would invest.
Would you invest in that?
I would buy. I would
Canseco
invest to have Jose Canseco's coin. I just think he's, when we talk about the world of baseball, like the numbers he was able to put, he was a superstar before superstars were around. And to be honest, he's been somebody who's been able to stay really fairly relevant with the crazy stuff that he's done, because there's only so many guys from the 80s that we still talk about, like Jose Canseco, if it was from the juicing part or the playing days. And I think Jose, again, he's a little nutty, but I think that he was able to open up a conversation in Major League Baseball that for a long time people weren't able to have. And fortunately and unfortunately, it was actually better for the game. And he was the one that was responsible for basically coming out there and being that pioneer of basically snitching on everyone.
Well, you know what? He also did call the relationship between.
He did, but that wasn't a hard one though. That wasn't a hard call out. That wasn't a hard call out. That wasn't going to work out. But again, I just think it's funny because I really think that he has beef with like A-Rod, like legit beef. Like other beef is like fake. Like I think that his beef, like I think A-Rod lives rent free in his head. But I just think he's a really good, interesting follow. And when he drops baseball knowledge, he's actually pretty knowledgeable guy. He dropped the other day. He said that Ronald Acuna, he could be potentially the only guy to ever go 50-50, which I thought was, very impressive from Jose. And Jose, people don't know, Jose is a very, very smart man, especially in baseball. He knows the game very well. So when he drops those little nuggets on players, I really like following him because of that.
Too bad the absurdity of everything else just overcompasses
correct
any intelligence he does have.
Indeed.
True. My favorite is M Squared Baked Goods. She is an incredible cake artist. I have to admit, I get my son's birthday cakes from her. But if you follow her on Instagram, that was Kingston's 2-year-old birthday cake. He's obsessed with excavators. She does commissions, and you can basically tell her whatever you want on a cake, and she will design it. She is also her grandmother. She's from Tijuana, so her family has given her recipes that have been passed on for generations, and she will make incredible Mexican desserts and these wonderful cakes as well. So check her out. They are so fun. She also does really cheeky cookies, like with curse words on them in Spanish as well.
I love that. You know
Which
what,
are great.
The cake decoration game is extremely underrated because I think that it's something that little kids and adults love. I think that, we should all get a cake made for our birthdays. Who our favorite baseball player is.
That would be amazing. All right, Ozzie, it is your time, your spotlight, your time to rant. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind is this confusion of baseball, of like the unwritten rules, okay? And my worry and my concern is that baseball is its own dad and mom, okay? And the players are the kids, okay? And that's why the code of conduct is there. And if we are going to go away from the 3-0 swing, it's not a big deal. That's awesome. You can go ahead and do it. If we're going to go and say bat flipping to a bigger degree is awesome, that's okay. We'll let them do it. The point is, though, that we have to have a line that is drawn, okay? And this past week, we've had a player like Javi Baez do it multiple times, switching hands when hitting, okay? People don't see it as a big deal. I see it as a sign of huge disrespect. Ronald Acuna tried doing it, and manager Mr. Snicker basically said, no, Ronald, not on my team. So what's been happening now is that the kids are playing out there, and like children, they push the boundaries. And then if you try to be that parent, you're no longer that cool parent. But boundaries need to be met. Why? Fights like what happened the other day, yesterday to be exact, in the minor leagues. And that's going to keep happening in the big leagues because like Jen said before, yes, you have to have respect for one another. But when you're pushing those boundaries on those unwritten rules, players get upset. And I'll tell you this right now. I don't care if you like the unwritten rules, if they're right or they're wrong. But one thing I will tell you this is that players do follow them. In the last 20 years, 3-0 count with a game up by more than 10 runs, it has happened one time, okay, in 20 years. Think about all the awesome players that have played. It's happened one time. Think about all the bad things and all the rules that Major League Baseball players have broken in the last 20 years. So obviously, they listen to the code of conduct of players a little bit more than they do in the rules. So whatever it is going to be, I don't care how they change them or make them, but there has to be a line drawn on what we're going to accept and not accept until we see somebody get hurt or there be a really, really bad fight. And then we're going to say, oh, so-and-so got hurt, and it's going to be really bad for the game of baseball. That was my take on it, because there's two schools, and people think that unwritten rules are just like rules that are like implemented to like not make the game fun or score runs. But unwritten rules are just like, I'll give you an unwritten rule. New hot girl comes into town and she's a reporter, and some player comes and asks her for a number in front of everybody. Like, unwritten rule, don't publicly do that. There's things that you do in the kitchen when you're gonna go eat in the clubhouse. Wear a t-shirt. Put pants on. Don't go in there with your underwear and no t-shirt. Again, unwritten rule. These are things that are not posted. And sometimes when you come up from the minor leagues,
here are some unwritten rules that we all need to follow in life. All right. You go use the bathroom and you use the toilet paper and you leave like only 3 sheets of toilet paper. You don't do that. You replace the toilet paper and you throw out the one.
But Jen,
take out the garbage.
You think it's funny? Jen, you think it's funny? You think it's funny?
In the kitchen, and you didn't buy them. You not eat them all. And leave an empty box. Those are unwritten rules.
But hey, people are going to think this is funny, but those are the unwritten rules, okay, of the game of life. Like, my wife, Sarah, is still mad. An unwritten rule: don't leave the cap off the toothpaste. In my house, is an unwritten rule. Somebody else's house, that might be okay. In our house, huge, big no-no. But that's an unwritten rule. In the world of baseball, though, and players, I'm not going to call them children, but they really are. When you play baseball, you're like in this bubble of a life where everyone caters to you, everyone pampers you. You're like the VIP, you're the big guy. So you really start thinking that you can do anything. And these unwritten rules start keeping you, I want to say, humble. Come on the team, plain rookies sit in the front, veteran guys sit in the back. And those are things that I think that because of one or two things, and people always think unwritten rules, home runs, bat flips, but the unwritten rules, like a huge slate of things that the code of conduct, when we talk about the unwritten rules, is what kind of respect you're going to have in the game on the field and off the field. Those are all things that the funniest one to me always is if your manager or coaching staff is sitting at the hotel bar, don't sit at the hotel bar, go somewhere else. Big unwritten rule. I don't know if they're still following that, but those
unless it's spring training.
Unless it's spring. Okay, yes, you see, she knows the unwritten rules very well. She knows the unwritten rules very well. So again, those are things that, again, in the game has changed, because when you guys were around, and even before, if you were sitting at a bar, okay, and a manager or a coach or someone was there, it was okay for me to share a drink with the players or with everybody, and everybody talk baseball. Nowadays, I don't know, because, social media and the way the game is covered, and I'm not there, so I don't know. So again, there's evolutions and there's things, but I just don't want, when people are out there and they're judging players, they're judging managers, and not just the old ones. Like this, Rocco's 40 years old. Everyone, these guys they don't know any better. These are things that are going to take time, but don't think that all these rules are going to go away. They're in there for a reason, okay? Because if they're not put there for giggles. They're there for a reason, because guys need to be kept accountable and be able to play a certain way and basically be around the game in a certain way. So again, it's going to change, but this whole destroy all the unwritten rules, that wouldn't be a very, very bad idea.
Well, it would take a very long time to undo them, because there are so many of them. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching, everybody. For Jen, Ozzie, we will see you next week.